Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Africa Straight Talk. We are Africa's unapologetic podcast that brings you discussions of matters of the African continent and the diaspora in a very unique and straightforward way. My name is Emmanuel Nadeau, and we thank you for your unwavering support of our podcast. My co-host is my colleague Kaboshi Mbunkwa, who is the producer and editor of our show. We have a long-lost voice back in our show. He has been away for a while now, and we are excited he is back. Welcome back, Baba Nani Edwin Okongo.
What? You should be like, guess who's back? Guess who's back?
Well, the real Baba Nani, please stand up.
Yes, the real Baba Nani, stand up. I mean, people have been missing you. We have been missing you, and our listeners have been missing you because because they have been sending me email and what's happened to Edwin? Yeah. So
I am back. I had to take time and work on my own health. As I've said, I can't help the continent. I can't be useful to the continent if I'm not healthy. And I'm not talking about physical health. I'm talking about mental health.
Yep.
I spent the whole of last year fighting the last place I worked at. And that really almost drove me to the edge. And I was just like, I just can't get things together. I need to concentrate. I need to take time and debrief. And it was one of the most toxic workplaces I've ever worked in, where, a woman at this place called Global Press, I can say it now because it's been proven, and she is one of those white saviors who will go and, based on lies, and she gets millions of dollars, and then she's not helping the women she said she was helping. And a couple of us stood up and began to point it out. Imagine a place where in a year, 150, within a few years, 150 people have gone and nobody lasts there for longer than 2 years. And then instead of proving that she's doing the right work, what does this woman do? She goes on the offensive, calls me a racist, calls the FBI on me, sends lawyers on me. Thankfully, I'm not that kind of, this white women, they do that. They're thinking, oh, maybe he has a record somewhere.
Let's find out. And and which have nothing to do, even if you have a record somewhere, and nothing to do with the issue at hand,
Well, that's
her company.
That's why they want to distract you by hoping that the FBI will look into your social media. I mean, and I joke a lot, I say a lot, and this is what I said on LinkedIn. What I've been through at my last workplace at Global Press is so appalling that although I don't condone, I will never do this, but I can understand why someone who is not mentally strong, doesn't have the kind of social support I have, would go back to work and kill everybody, right? And if this woman knew anything about journalism, she would have known that that is protected speech. It's really one of those white people who have taken advantage of people of color, and they're like, all I have to do is just show up and I'll get $1 million here.
And it happened all the time. I mean, we talk about it on this show. As a matter of fact, you who are you are the native of the country. The culture. Every part of this culture. You go over there to propose something. No, they won't give you the money. But a white woman come, okay, I'm going to do that. And she's not even from there, never lived there, don't know anything. They say, oh, yeah.
And it's one thing if you say, and you're even doing a little bit. I went there and started editing. They sent me a piece of, when you're doing the editing test. And they send me like, oh, what questions would you have about this draft? And I'm saying, okay, I hope this is not the right draft. It was just so poorly written, right? And when I came to find out that that was the standard, so that the women who have been told, oh, we're here to train you, they were not being trained. The smart ones just left like after they found out, they're like, oh no, this shit ain't working, right?
Yeah.
And the ones of us who could ask questions, we were given false promises. Oh, that's why we brought you in. You're really good. You can, and they do that. And then when you get to that, second year and you're asking more questions, they just cut you like that.
I didn't mention something at the beginning of the show, toxic work environment. And that is something a lot of us in the diaspora face. And a lot of us in the diaspora cannot recognize a toxic work environment. So we just keep quiet and stick to ourselves and stay within our lane and don't say anything. That is something that we want to talk about a whole lot more here on Africa Straight Talk. Now, we've been away for how many months? Like, is it 2-3 months? I don't know, been away for almost a year. But we've been, we took a short break. And again, it's because we needed to take some time off for ourselves. And Edwin talked about mental health, which is very, very important. And also to think about this show of ours. How can we better our lives using this show? It's so easy to talk about the problems of Africa and try and encourage our fellow brothers and sisters on the continent to do well. But what about us here in the diaspora? Not just here in America, but in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, in South America. What are we doing to better our lives? What are we doing to settle in this adopted country of ours? Because some of us have stayed here for, 3 decades plus? So that's what we want this show to be about, us here in the diaspora. So welcome back, Edwin.
So Kaboshi, it's really important, as you say, we've not spent the last 3 months, since you guys went offline for a while, we have been discussing these things. How do we take our show into a point where we are not just lecturing the leaders in the continent, which we will continue to do.
Of course, we are not going to stop that.
So, but we're going to do more on ourselves here. One of the most educated populations in this country is us. And whenever things don't work, we go get more education. We go try this. But on the job places, we're getting treated like shit. And it's time to speak up. So we need to start owning this country, because a lot of us here, Nado, I'm sure people who have been here, 50 years and they still think they're going back. No, you're not. No. So let's make it work here for our children, for our grandchildren, and the generation to come.
Yeah. And that's one of the topics that, we are going to be discussing here at Africa Straight Talk: education, toxic workplace. They're just generally the work environment, finance, money matters is very, very important. Hybrid lifestyle, the differences in the lifestyles that we have, the other Black person in the room, just throwing out, and also mental health, a big, big thing, mental health, LGBTQ, white privilege. What the hell is all this? Some of the things that we face here in the diaspora these are some of the hot topics that we are going to be talking about in Africa Straight Talk. And we're still unapologetic. We are not going to end that,
Oh, yes. We're going to be.
Continue.
So, Kaboshi, the best way to segue, I think, is, I don't know if I know you know what's going on in Kenya, where young people got up and just did what we could not do. I was there the first multi-party election, the government came in and did whatever the heck they did. And we went on. But these people born before I came to this country. They born
after you came to this country, yes.
Some of them a decade after I came to this country.
Yes, absolutely.
And they just went over there and they are being very savvy. Now, I want to kind of start it backward from like what happened today.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you saw the president. So after they came and they protested, and he pulled this bill that was going to thinks that the way to move a country forward is to tax people who might not even be having 3 meals a day. So they're having 2. Now you're taxing bread at 16%. Right?
Yeah.
You are taking the money transfer, the way, like the tiny, like I want to send my relative in the village, my mom in the village, my grandma in the village, 100 shillings to buy some vegetables, and you want a cut of that. So the people resisted, and he gave in. He said, and then today it was like being interviewed by 3 of the top journalists in the country.
Yes.
Who, by the way, were all men. I don't know.
Yes. Can you imagine that? I did notice that. I'm like, where the hell are the women? Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So one thing that he says when they asking him, what have you done? And one of the most impressive thing about this movement, this uprising, is that even people from his own village, right?
Yes, I heard
standing
that.
up.
Yeah.
So when he was asked, oh, there's this mama from the village, blah, blah. Oh, what she doesn't know is that our children, I was among like the 500 from the area who I'm working very hard to find jobs for them abroad. We want to export labor, and I wanted to puke. Right. So we need to be very candid for me and say 20 years old coming to this country. I was just so fortunate to have an uncle here to guide me, even though he was working so hard. He didn't teach me a lot of things, but just to have a landing place, someone to tell me was so important. But I have seen people I came here with drink themselves to death, hang themselves because of the pressures. A 20-year-old me, if I had qualified, I was qualified. If I had found a spot in a Kenyan university, there is no place like home, to use the old cliche.
Of course, yes.
This idea is really working backward against what we have been saying, that the children should stay there. The youth should stay there instead of embarking on those boat of fortune to Europe, and they're dying all over there. So I think what you want to do, actually, you want to put these kids in exile. Like you're sending them a concentration camp. That's what it is.
Let's talk about this a little bit. Whether Ruto is sending kids here or not, kids are already coming here. They've been coming here for decades, right? They have been. Yeah, they have been. So let's not make it sound like he is starting something new. He's not.
So the people I'm worried about are the people he's going to send to the Middle East. Children are going to get raped, killed, maimed. Right?
But this is the thing. What it is that you're saying, Edwin, is very, very important. But these things have been going on forever. So my thing is we need to deal this in a very strategic way. How can we rescue or help our children? Should they go there? Because we can't stop them from going there. You can't. But what structures and what policies can be put in place to safeguard them?
But
for me, these journalists, the 3 men that went to interview the president, I think did a bad job at not focusing on some of the facts. This is a big opportunity, a huge opportunity. I don't know what president allows journalists to even talk to them. Not in Africa. I don't. Even Biden himself does not allow journalists to talk
were they
to
European journalists?
These are Kenyan journalists.
Okay. So Nado, Aboshi, you have to understand that journalism is part of the problem. Journalism, even in this country, the media, the corporate media. So the people that they picked to interview, the 3 men they interviewed, come from the top 3 TV and media stations, right?
Yes.
Media conglomerates, right? So some of these politicians own shares in those media. They belong, you don't know who owns them, right? So
Yes.
they are not going to ask. I mean, they might act like they're asking the right
Oh, they
questions.
asked such soft questions.
Yeah. So
And they didn't even follow up. Like,
but also, but in the issue, and I think this is why we in the diaspora need to stop kissing ass, because this guy has been here twice. Oh, I mean, before he gets here, we'll talk about how fucked up things are back home. And then, and he gets here, we roll a red carpet, and we're, some of us not even Maasai, we're dressing like Maasais. So, because these journalists you're talking about, most of them, if they come to the West, they just came, briefly. They have not lived here to understand. So when you tell them, hey, when they hear him say, I'm working to send Kenyans abroad, so we export labor, blah, 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 they're like, wow,
So
that's
ridiculous.
yeah,
great.
exactly. They kept when Ruto
because they don't know.
says something, they asked a question, Ruto responded, and they just shut up and moved on to the next question. I'm like, where's your follow-up question? When he said we're going to send kids, you're like, okay, let's talk about that. What structures have you put in place? Because in the news, we have seen our fellow people are dying. What are you doing? How are you going to protect these kids?
So,
but instead, the first 30 minutes of that interview was about, Mr. President, what is your feeling about the kids who died?
Exactly.
Shot dead by the police. But Mr. President, what do you tell the mother of that child who has died? What the hell did they want the president to say? I don't care about the mother of the child. Those were not, I was so annoyed. I'm
They
like, we
trapped
need
him.
more
They trapped
pointed.
him. Well, the clip going on around is they trapped him, whether willingly or not, when they told him that a child was shot 12 times. And he said, oh, the boy is alive, right?
No, yeah, the boy, no, because he thought it was the one with the rubber bullets. So my thing is,
Yeah.
instead of the other one. But that's not a trap. That's not a trap.
What I saw there was a president who, the day after the kids forced him to withdraw that bill, he came on and just defended it. He just like, oh, if Kenya fails, it's because you all did not allow me to the things that were in there. And he was talking about tourism, and he's talking about, Kenya standing in the world, which is like we are the purveyors of white supremacy.
But
Why does it matter?
Let me
standing?
tell you something. Let me tell you something. This interview, from what I've seen so far, Ruto looks so good to the Western country.
Of course, yeah.
He looks fantastic.
It was good, yeah.
It's a great PR stunt. It worked.
It was. And which it brings me to the point of like my advice to the young people. Do not give Ruto and his puppeteers in the West an excuse to call you terrorist. What he's going to do is like, you heard it. One thing that he said very well when they said, oh, people are going to demonstrate peacefully, but the ones who burn things or break, the police are going to deal with them. That's how movements get sabotaged. And these kids might be too young to know. So there's this white flag the government uses to go and bring its goons to come start breaking things to incite others to break things, And the puppeteers in the West, they will say, hey, it was peaceful until they start rioting. They're terrorists. They're somehow going to tie it to Al-Shabaab. They're going to, and then we can't lose Kenya. It's the only sane country in that neighborhood.
Okay,
let's send guns there and tanks.
Let's talk about this Gen Z. Who are they? And where did they come from, basically? Because you don't hear about Gen Zs. These are these kids who were born in the 2000s, like not too long ago, by the way, right?
And they are 65% of the population.
65%.
That's a lot.
That's big. That's huge.
Yeah.
And they mobilize themselves using social media, so technology. They don't have they don't have a head, right? So they're just many arms working together.
Yeah.
So there's no way you can pinpoint one thing and target just one. You have to target many, right? Which is, and that's generally who they are. But they are the kids of the millennials.
our kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the millennials are the ones who are currently in parliament right now in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. You're not
So
wrong.
can you imagine that? And the
Okay.
millennials grew up during the second president of Kenya, the late Daniel Arap Moi, during that era.
Right.
Right. And I think we had a pre-meeting about this. And Edwin, you said they are watoto wa watoto wa Nyayo.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little bit about
Well,
what watoto wa watoto wa Nyayo
So
is?
the children of Nyayo. Nyayo was the motto of the second president of Kenya. So the first president, Jomo Kenyatta, his motto when he said Harambe, which means in Swahili pulling together, Harambe, and
Nyayo.
no, in Kenyatta's was Jew.
Oh, okay.
Jew zaidi, eh?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so you see,
I didn't know.
so that was Harambe Jew. You know, I was born in like early 70s. I was able to hear him on the radio and people, you know. So Harambe, you say Jew. So the new, he dies in office and the new president comes, Harambe, he says Nyayo. We had to respond Nyayo. Nyayo, which is the Swahili word plural for footsteps, right? So we are going to follow the footsteps of the presidents, Harambe, Nyayo. So we were the children of Nyayo, right? The children of the trendsetter, right? And we would follow him, the pathfinder. So he gave us milk in schools. I remember like Monday, Wednesday, Friday was milk in the school that they brought like this really pasteurized milk that tasted so good. So they got so drunk on that milk, right? And they forgot about everything. And when they went in there, they have been continuing the same bullshit.
You are listening to Africa Straight Talk. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your podcast. Africa Straight Talk, Africa's unapologetic podcast.
But one thing that has happened in Kenya, so these watoto wa Nyayo, the ones who are now the fathers of the Gen Zs, yeah. So the schools taught us that when you are in a position of power, everything belongs to you. Right? And they never broke from that. So now these Gen Z, they're coming thanks to the internet. They're saying, no, we are not going to do that. And they're not prepared for that.
They are sticking to the facts because they're sticking to the facts. And you say something important that the older generation, the millennials, are not ready to see why should I respond to this child who has no job and sticks on their phone and looks on the head is buried on their phone 24/7. Why should I respond to someone like that? They don't know anything. But that's the thing. That's what the generation before them, their parents, taught them. Children are supposed to be seen and not heard.
Exactly.
But the Gen Zs are coming up and saying, oh, we're going to be seen and we are going to be heard. And what we say absolutely matters. And we don't give a shit about what your feelings, whatever feelings you have, take them to your grandparents.
And they showed, And they showed it. And they showed it. Yeah. They showed it when they were running around, even in his home, like where his home is. I saw young people who speak the language. Again, this is why I'm so proud. Like initially, it was like, oh, the people who come from the president's area, they just remain quiet and they go sharpen their spears and arrows and they get ready for a fight. This time, there were people speaking to him in his own language, in the place where he comes from, marching to his in his home, right? And they were these kids were chanting "Matako ya Ruto." Matako ya Ruto, which it's basically calling him an asshole, Matako ya Ruto, Ruto's butt, Ruto's ass, and they were like, you know what? You do not, if you do not respect us, we don't respect you. I'll add something very quickly, and I want you guys, Nado, what you think about this. One thing that they've done was so brilliant. There is a website for recalling lawmakers, members of parliament,
Yes.
your senators. Like you go there and because this is public information, they have gone and they have looked how they voted, right? How they voted, and they tell you this voted yes. Here is a recall. If you are a registered voter in this, sign this petition. And if they can manage, this is why I was going to that peaceful means of changing things, but still putting heat on Matakoya Ruto. What you do is like you use this peaceful, you use the constitution because the puppeteers in the West, they are all about the constitution, right? So let's use that constitution and say, we're going to recall.
Yeah, what is remarkable is that these Gen Zs, using the digital activism, they are, this transcends all, genders and ethnicity, just like you said a while ago.
Yeah.
Even people from his region,
Yeah.
And the MPs in Kenya are some of the highest paid in the world. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you're telling the kids, to pay more taxes so that you can take that and put it back in the pocket of those MPs so they can keep on supporting him.
Yeah. So Edwin mentioned something very, very important, that now the fight needs to be strategic. The fight needs to go into the background. Mobilize yourselves in the background and start pushing for an agenda that suits you. That is what they need to start doing. An agenda that you believe in, an agenda that is right for the people. Now that we have Gen Zs so much into politics, this should not be a fad. This shouldn't be a one-time thing, right? They need to start thinking strategically. How are we going to get XYZ out so that we can show these guys that Kenya is, as Ruto said, Kenya is one of the top countries in the world. We need to put him to the test. And this is how you're going to put him to the test. It's not going to be about tourism. Who gives a shit about lions in Masai Mara?
No, exactly. This tourism thing he's talking about. 80%
we are more than
distracting.
tourism. That's all fluff. That's all fluff. It's all fluff.
So
we need to hold these people accountable. That is how we're going to make ourselves shine much better.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing that he promised the people that he is going to have a debt audit. So everybody agrees that the debt has to be paid. And what we disagree on is like, where is this debt? How much was taken out? Where did it go? We need an audit. I can't go out there and my home, for example, go take some money and then come to the budget of the house and tell my wife, we have to pay this debt that I owe Haboshi. For what? You have to explain why did you give Nado money? Where did it go? And how did it benefit the family so that we can pay it from the joint account from the budget of the fund? So that's what the kids are asking.
Yeah, that's true.
And also,
exactly.
So accountability is continue.
It's all about accountability. And then secondly, who is going to pay this? So if we do an audit and find that a lot of the money went to the first ladies, Kenyatta's wife and Ruto's wife and all that.
Or to go build
parliament.
To go build a pool like Zuma.
Like Zuma. So if we do that, then they have to be the ones to return the money back. He said today he's not going to give his wife any, 500, 600 million shillings. That's a lot of money for the first office. And she's only been there like not even 2 years. Right. So he promised that. So that's where you'll go. You don't go say, now to be able to pay China, I'm gonna have to tax.
You guys.
When you buy a loaf of bread, it's now going to be 16 more shillings. Right. So that we can pay that debt. That is the bullshit that this Gen Z kids have rejected and have said no.
Despite all the domestic turmoil, he's sending the 400 Kenyan police officer to Haiti, huh?
He has already.
I know.
They're there.
With assault rifle and AK-7. I mean, where were these forces when Al-Shabaab was attacking Kenya? where were the police officers that he put together?
Well, again, the puppeteers, the master of
Yeah.
puppets is in Washington, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And what is Buckingham Palace, Downing Street, right?
Yes.
So those are, so as as I said earlier, President Ruto, he became like, was he like the first president in like 15 years to visit the White House, to have like a state visit to the White House? So those kind of things make him feel important, right?
He went to Vatican. He went to France. I mean, he's running all around.
He's running all around.
Colonials.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, you have, I don't remember if it was you a while back. There was a government minister in Congo DRC who got in trouble for saying that, the French, they civilized us, right? Sadly, sadly, that's the mentality of all these people.
Yeah,
the Rutos. It's like, as long as the Washington and Downing Street approve what I'm doing, I am doing well. Kenya's got good standing, and the tourists will come, right? Yeah. And so that is so they are the purveyors of white supremacy.
Yeah, I have always wondered over the year why these African leaders they crave for white validation. They crave.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of us, really. It's our content. Christianity is flourishing, is growing fastest in Africa because we believe that God is white and Jesus is white and Mary, Virgin, was white and blah blah blah, and white is better than. So Gen Z are saying we are not being ungodly by asking for justice. Okay,
exactly.
So do not try to blame God. Or try, as I saw someone was like, where is this devil? The devil does not live in Kenya. The devil has not done anything to us. It's you. So don't, let's go down and pray. That is the colonial mentality. That is colonial, how the Europeans colonized us by telling us, let's go pray.
Yeah. I am wondering really quickly if this is going to have a trickle effect to other countries, because I've seen a lot of social media videos, Ugandans, admiring what the Gen Z in Kenya have done. I think, Edwin, you posted something on our WhatsApp group about Malawi trying to follow suit, and other African countries taking a leaf from what our Gen Z is doing and replicating it in their own countries. I'm wondering if there's going to have that effect. And I'm wondering if, someone like Museveni is just sitting there laughing, saying, you know what, these are silly children. How, let them try and do this in Uganda.
And also, and some of these West African French-speaking countries as well. Maybe it would be another African Spring.
Well, that would actually be a mistake. And my
why do you say that?
I say that because that is the mistake that people in the Arab Spring made. So we have to be very careful not to make the same mistakes. And here is why. The Arab Spring, if you remember, began in Tunisia, right?
In Tunisia,
Yes.
Began in Tunisia, and it happened after this fish sells.
No, they sell
the market.
On the street. He's a street vendor.
Street vendor.
Yeah.
He torched himself, set himself on fire, and died to protest.
Yes.
And so naturally, organically, it grew, and that's how it started. And then the copycat started. Libya, they got rid of Gaddafi. Egypt, Hosni Mubarak is gone, and just like spread.
Algeria.
And the only place, the only place it succeeded was in Tunisia, because this Kenya thing didn't start yesterday. Right?
Yeah.
So it's been boiling all for a long time.
Do your research on how these Gen Zs in Kenya have been running a hub, a technology hub in Nairobi that's well known.
Yeah.
Right? Worldwide. They call it the Silicon Savannah, and how they use these tools and learn from them. You might even send people to Kenya to kind of find out how they did. So do not just instinctively go like knee-jerk reaction. We need to do.
Yeah,
And-
it
and-
might
You're not gonna
backfire.
succeed.
And I think the Kaboshi that you were saying that they don't have leaders and that's not good. But for me, it's good. Without the leader, you don't know who is the head of the thing. So you
Yeah.
cut one over here, another one comes out. It's like
Yeah, okay. It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. It can be
Yeah.
good and it can be bad. You know, because right now, if we say, okay, Gen Z, you're busy screaming, Ruto must go. Who's going to replace him? Because some things don't work in a vacuum. You know, if you have somebody who you know is going to be a better fit, then why not have that person? So sometimes it's good to have
Yeah.
a leader. Sometimes it's not. Like in the protests, you know, it was very difficult to have a target,
yeah, exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
which worked very well for them. But now the question comes, well,
have
Ruto
to
must
prepare.
go. Who's going to, you have to prepare for what comes
Yeah,
next.
and just like Edwin was saying earlier, the reason this fell over in Egypt is because after they succeeded to remove Mubarak, they didn't have somebody there. They put in these Arab,
The
Muslim
Brotherhood.
brothers,
Muslim Brotherhood.
and
who-
they mess
Yeah.
everything up there.
yeah. So and then what do we have? And we have Al-Sisi.
We're back to
Al-Sisi.
square one.
Yeah.
You're back to square one.
If not
So-
worse.
Yeah, so you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you see what's happening in Sudan. You know, so these things. Let's do it in a way
Strategically.
that is very strategic, that is very different in the way they they did in the 80s and part of 90s, where so many people died. The reason we are there are so 75% young people in the continent of Africa is yes, it can be attributed to the AIDS pandemic.
Yeah.
But also to the wars that was started because by
civil
people
wars,
who wanted, the civil wars. So let's not make that mistake, because we know how brutal these people can be.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
So let's do it. You can be very vicious without being violent. Right?
Absolutely.
We outsmart them. The greatest thing, the tool we have is like, they cannot turn off the internet without turning the internet off for themselves.
Of
Yes.
their own, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah, I think
Yeah, so-
Ruto has definitely a trust deficit, and
Deficit is bankrupt.
That was a trust deficit.
That's a
I like that.
bankruptcy.
I like that statement.
I
It's
mean,
a trust deficit here.
you only
know.
have 9% approval. You
If
know,
only.
only.
If only those journalists they even felt intimidated. Anyway, we'll debrief about that on another episode.
Okay.
Guys, can we close this down? Or
Yeah,
shall
go
we-
ahead. Go ahead. Edwin, it was great to have you back, and we are glad that you are back with us here. And with all your insight, we really appreciate that you work very hard and try to, solve some of your own personal issues, and then we are here with you. That's great.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank Kwesi Wilson for holding down the fort while I was gone.
Oh my God.
And he is now part of these podcasts. He's out of the country now. So I love that boy.
You know what? We forgot all about Kwesi.
No, don't worry. I got it. I got it inside here. Okay,
Oh,
let's stop.
Jesus.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right.
No.
Africa Straight Talk is presented by me, Emmanuel Nadeau, Edwin Okongo, and Kaboshi Mbunkwa, with the collaboration of Kwesi Wilson, host of the podcast Telling Tall Stories, who is vacationing in Ghana.
Find more episodes on our website, www.africastraighttalk.com. You can also find us wherever you find your podcasts. We are on X at African Stock, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram by searching Africa Straight Talk. And of course, don't forget to tell your friends about us. To become a sponsor of our growing podcast, email us africastraighttalk@gmail.com. Until next time, Zenado.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We invite you to check back here for our next one. In the meantime, always be safe, be well, and love one another.